No one leaves, ever. That was the warning written on the broken wooden sign at the entrance of the forest trail. Most people would probably laugh at something like that and walk away, and honestly I should have done the same thing. But curiosity pushed me forward instead of fear. The deeper I walked into the forest, the quieter the world became behind me. The wind stopped moving through the branches, the birds stopped singing, and even the sound of my own footsteps seemed strangely distant. Then, somewhere in the darkness between the trees, I heard something whisper my name for the first time. That was the moment I realized the stories about this forest were not just stories. The forest looked ordinary when I first arrived, but something about the place felt deeply wrong the moment I stepped past the wooden warning sign. Tall trees stood packed closely together, like silent guards blocking the sunlight from reaching the ground. The deeper I walked along the narrow dirt path, the darker the forest became. The air slowly turned colder and heavier with each step, and even the smell of the forest changed from fresh pine to something damp and rotten, like wet soil mixed with decay. I stopped for a moment and looked back toward the entrance of the trail. The strange part was that I could no longer see the road behind me. Thick fog had slowly spread between the trees and swallowed the path completely. I felt a small knot of worry forming in my chest, but I convinced myself it was just normal forest fog. Trying to calm my thoughts, I turned around and continued walking deeper into the woods. The silence of the forest became more unsettling with every step I took. Normally, forests are filled with sounds of birds, insects, and rustling leaves, but this place felt completely dead. My boots crushed dry leaves beneath my feet, yet even that sound seemed distant, like it was being swallowed by the darkness around me. The deeper I went, the more it felt like the forest itself was listening. Then I heard something behind me, a single footstep. I froze instantly and turned around quickly, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. The path behind me was empty. The fog drifted slowly between the trees like pale ghosts wandering through the forest. I stared into the mist for several long seconds, trying to see if someone else had followed me inside. But there was no one there. I told myself it must have been a falling branch or an animal moving through the undergrowth. Still, the uneasy feeling in my chest refused to disappear. I continued walking, but now every step felt heavier than the last. The trees grew taller and darker as the path twisted deeper into the forest. Their branches stretched across the sky like long skeletal fingers blocking what little sunlight remained. Shadows moved strangely between the trunks, sometimes shifting even though there was no wind at all. After several minutes of walking, I noticed something unusual carved into one of the tree trunks beside the path. At first I thought it was just random scratches, but when I stepped closer I realized they were words. Deep lines had been carved into the bark with something sharp. The message read, "Turn back." I stared at the warning for a moment. The carving looked old, but not ancient. Someone had clearly left that message here deliberately. My stomach tightened slightly as a chill crept across my skin. Then I noticed another carving on the tree beside it. This one read, "IT watches." A cold shiver ran down my spine as I slowly looked around the forest. The trees stood silent and motionless around me, but the strange feeling of being watched suddenly became impossible to ignore. The forest seemed darker now, heavier, like something hidden between the trees had noticed my presence. Then the whisper came, soft, almost too quiet to hear. "Leave." The voice drifted from somewhere beyond the trees. My heart began beating faster as I turned slowly in circles trying to find the source of the whisper. "Hello?" I called out nervously. My voice echoed weakly through the forest, but no one answered. For several seconds there was nothing but silence. Then another whisper floated through the trees. This time it was closer. "Leave while you can." My hands trembled slightly as fear began creeping into my mind. I started walking faster along the path, hoping it would eventually lead back to the road or to some kind of clearing. But something strange happened as I continued moving forward. The path began to look unfamiliar and the trees around me seemed different than before. I stopped suddenly. The carved warning tree stood directly in front of me again. The same words stared back at me from the bark. "Turn back." My heart skipped a beat. I was certain I had walked away from this spot minutes ago, yet somehow I had returned to the exact same tree. A terrible realization slowly formed in my mind. The forest was changing the path. Or worse, the forest was trapping me. The whisper returned again, but this time it sounded almost amused. "You can't leave." My breathing became heavier as panic slowly took hold. I turned away from the carved tree and began running deeper into the forest, hoping to escape whatever strange loop I had fallen into. Branches scratched against my jacket as I pushed through the dense trees. The fog grew thicker and thicker until it became difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Then suddenly I saw light. A small clearing opened between the trees ahead of me. In the center of the clearing stood an old wooden cabin. The structure looked abandoned and broken, but a faint orange glow flickered behind the windows. Smoke slowly rose from the chimney. Someone was inside. Relief rushed through me as I hurried toward the cabin. Finally, I found another person in the forest. I knocked quickly on the cabin door. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the door slowly creaked open. A tall figure stood inside the dark room. At first I felt relieved to see someone there, but that relief quickly turned into confusion. The figure did not move. It simply stood there silently in the darkness. "Hello?" I said cautiously. The figure slowly stepped forward into the lantern light. My breath caught in my throat. Its body looked human, but its face was completely blank. Smooth, pale skin covered where the eyes and mouth should have been. I stumbled backward in horror as my mind struggled to understand what I was seeing. Behind me, the forest clearing had changed. More faceless figures slowly stepped out from between the trees. Dozens of them. They stood silently around the clearing, watching and waiting. The faceless figure standing in the cabin doorway tilted its head slightly. Then it spoke in a low whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "No one leaves. Ever." The trees around the clearing began moving slowly. Their branches twisted and bent like living things. The fog thickened until the forest walls looked completely sealed. The faceless figures slowly stepped closer, one step at a time. My heart pounded violently as I turned and ran back into the forest. But no matter how far I ran, the trees always led me back to the same clearing. The same cabin. The same silent figures waiting for me. Finally, I stopped running. My breathing was ragged and my legs trembled with exhaustion. The faceless figures surrounded me quietly. The first one stepped forward slowly. Its blank face tilted toward me. Then the whisper returned again. Soft, cold, patient. "You belong here now." The fog swallowed the clearing completely. The last thing I saw before darkness closed in was the broken wooden sign standing at the edge of the forest. The words carved into the wood were no longer a warning. They were a promise. "No one leaves. Ever."